I want to look back a little bit just at what we've talked about for the last couple of days, but also then to look forward. And I think it's really important to really do that. So we've heard so many great things about beans. Even just today, I've been asked by my team to summarize the takeaways, and I'm sitting there going, how am I meant to do that? Because they want to do it very short and sharp and snappy. But we've talked about the health and nutritional benefits of beans. We've talked about opportunities for supply and demand and how do we get the balances right and how do we work on that. We've talked about how beans can impact sustainability. We've talked about new trends, products, ways that you can engage. And I think this is really, really critical. But it does fit within a broader context. And I think it's really important for us to understand that broader context. So around the world, I just want to set the scene. And I work at a global level on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which SDG 2, which is one of 17, is focused around zero hunger, which ties in agriculture, production. It includes biodiversity, nutrition, and a range of other things. But when we look at the global world, our food system is in trouble. We're not only recovering at the moment from COVID, and COVID is still there, it's not gone away, we've just learned how to deal with it. But we're also now facing a cost of living crisis in many countries where, depending on where you live, you will see prices just continuing to go up, completely out of line with salary growth and everything else. At the same time, we're seeing conflicts that are protracted. Ukraine is one of the big ones, but there's been a lot of other conflicts going on for many years that we often don't hear about enough in the news. And then this has all helped drive further food insecurity and malnutrition. If we think about climate, we have CO2 at its highest level in 2 million years. There's changing weather patterns. It's making it very hard for farmers to be able to actually make a living, to have predictability about when to plant, how to plant. Everything's starting to change. We have a food system that is a high contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, but then we also have a food system in which a third of all food's wasted. So there's these anomalies that we face in the system. On hunger, we see a continued rise in hunger. We had a dip in hunger, and now we've got a rise back. 828 million people still go to bed hungry every day. And this is in a world where we produce enough food to feed 1.5 times the planet. We also see 3.1 billion, and these figures not getting the right nutrition, so malnourished in some way. And when you think about that number, that is a huge number when you look at the population of the world. We have lots of challenges at the same time around cost of living. You know, as I mentioned, we're seeing prices continue to increase. And I've talked with people on the ground who are paying 2, 3, 4 times to get the same level of ingredients and basic ingredients. And for some of us in some parts of the world, that just means we have to make a few choices. For others, it means they have to choose between whether they eat or they don't eat. And so this is really critical. And so as we go forward, we need to kind of think about how do we develop solutions. It's tipped that the world population by 2050 is going to hit 10 billion people. And so we have to think about how are we going to feed a world of 10 billion people by 2050. So where do we go from here? It can get depressing, and I'm not trying to make you depressed, but where do we go from here? How do we address these big issues, and what does that look like? And I think this is really critical. What I would say is we need to change our food system. And when we think about food as part of a system, we need to change it. We need to change it in such a way that it looks at how it's good for people. And when we talk about people, we've got to think holistically. So this is for nutrition, this is for livelihoods, this is for all of these elements. At the same time, we have to think about the planet. And when we think about the planet, you know, I was talking to a farmer earlier, and he was saying soil is the investment in the next generation. What goes on there? And I think we've got to think about it in such a way. If we don't look after our planet, it's going to be increasingly hard to survive. It's going to lead to more conflict. It's going to lead to more challenges. And so this is really critical. Biodiversity If any of you have been to Future Seeds, I went there. I was lucky enough to go to the opening last year. But just to see the diversity that's being held just up the road is phenomenal. And yet we use a very small amount. But that's the vault. Because if the climate keeps changing, we're going to need to go to that vault to find ways to adapt, to breed different plants. And so the role of Sea Biodiversity CGIAR system in research is going to have to grow fast because it's got to keep up with this changing climate. So within all of this, we also have to think about prosperity. We have to think about how do we lift people's prosperity around the world as the world continues to go forward. And that means we have to think carefully about the systems that are playing. And this is really key. We also need to think about what a healthy plate looks like. We must be, we've got to think about how are we growing food and eating food that can be colourful and nutritious. We need to think about this in the kind of context also of affordability. Sometimes we come up with amazing ideas, but they're not as accessible or affordable to everyone. And we have to think about that in the way that we're addressing the big picture. I think, personally, that beans have a huge role to play in addressing all of these questions. And there's lots of other things that can help address some of these questions, but I think beans helps us address all of these questions. And so for me, when I think about beans, I think beans are a solution to so many of our questions. They are a way, the role that you play here in this room can be part of the solution to fix some of the biggest challenges in our world. So this is really key. I want to tell you a little bit about the Beans is How campaign, which we've heard a little on. So it's a new campaign that was launched at COP27. COP27 is the big climate meetings that happen every year. Increasingly, as the climate's getting more and more challenging, these meetings are becoming more and more important. And we were at COP27 and we launched in November with a coalition of founding partners a campaign to double the consumption of beans in the next 5 years, starting from January, so we're only a month in. And when we talk about beans, we are talking about a broad definition here. So we're including peas and lentils. I don't believe you should get really technical when we're talking to consumers. I think we need to open up the conversation and be inclusive. But we're thinking using beans as a kind of broad example, and we're taking a few, liberties there. But what we want to do is we believe that we need to make beans desirable. We need to make them visible. We need to really position them as this climate-smart food. We need to get people to understand that they are delicious and that they can be helpful for helping us to drive the future. So this is really key. So, beans, so many things. They can help us on our financial, our health, our climate problems. So beans are all of these things. And it's hard often to talk about other products in this way. But, we've heard about nutrition. We've heard about all of the elements. And I'm not a nutritionist. That's why I try and hang out with nutritionists. But, key proteins, carbohydrates, fiber, bioactives, vitamins and minerals. And, when you pair them with carbohydrates, they provide the essential amino acids, and they're this complete food. They support healthy diets. They're affordable. They help us reduce impact on climate change. And they're tasty and versatile, as we've heard from so many chefs here today. So beans can help us do this. I've talked to smallholder farmers as well, large-scale farmers. Beans are key part of regenerative agriculture. They're key for empowering and really building even on fertilizer, nitrogen back into the soil. There's so many angles. And every time I have a conversation, I learn something new about how exciting beans can be to try and contribute to the solutions that we're looking for. I believe if we're successful in doubling, we can improve our malnutrition rates, we can make more affordable, healthy diets, we can reduce impact on climate change, and we can transform our food system. And so I think if we are successful, we lock arms, we all gather together, and we really lean in. And I think this is key. I've heard about lots of efforts happening around beans. What we have to do is just nudge those efforts towards one another so that we work as a unified voice in all the parts of the world that we're in, all the communities and networks that we're in in a way that we can then take that forward and drive it forward to transform the system. So in order to do this, we need everyone on board. And we've built we're building a campaign. I'll go into it, just give you a little peek at what we're doing. So we've built a coalition, and I'll show you who's involved in the coalition. We're building out a board that's going to be the governance mechanism for the campaign so that it's got broader buy-in. We have a Bean Science and Innovation Council, and this is a council of experts across multiple disciplines designed to really help ensure that what we're saying is validated. When I'm not the expert on beans on all levels. I'm super passionate about it, but we need to get validated data to be able to help us do that. And then we've also got we've got bean champions that we're continuing to grow and develop who can advocate some of this. Just quick snapshot. This is some of our Science and Innovation Council. You'll see Alison, who was on stage earlier today, AGB, and absolutely key part of this group. But you'll see that we have researchers, we have medical doctors, we have soil scientists, we have insight drivers around behavior change. This will probably grow to a couple more people, but just to show you some of the diversity from around the world and some of the organizations that are also involved. We have a coalition. This is the coalition at the moment. I'm hoping by Monday, I will get a lot of applications from this room in terms of people wanting to join the coalition. You can join the coalition if you care about beans. What we ask is that you think about how you can contribute to doubling bean consumption. And I think for this room, it's a no-brainer. You're all probably already doing it. So it's about how do we think about that. We want all kinds of organizations here. It's obviously great to have the US Dry Bean Council a part of this. It's really great to just see, we've got Chelsea from a Legume a Day. We've got chefs from the Chef Manifesto. There's lots of groups here. But this is a coalition that's open, and we get together. The calls are super exciting because you hear from around the world people that are passionate about beans, thinking and talking and sharing ideas. And as we continue, we'll find ways to collaborate regionally, locally, in really unifying around these messages. So, we all have this role to play. And this is something that sometimes you can sit in these big conversations and you can say, this is not me. But the reality is, if you're going to change something, you need everyone. So we need policymakers. We've heard about dietary guidelines. We've heard about policies that enable beans to be utilized, to be consumed. We need policymakers involved. We need scientists, nutritionists, and health specialists. We need better data to track bean consumption, production, unifying that so that we can see where we're at and how we move forward. We need that. On the research side, I know the Global Pulse Confederation told me that pulses as a basket of 11 crops kinds get 1/10 of the research that goes into corn and soy. So we need to lobby about this. We need to say, how do we get more research into beans, into other products, so that we can be ready for this future that we're stepping into? Food industry has a key role to play. Marketers, private sector, we need to get you engaged. Chefs, creatives, champions. We need everyone. And it's really key. How you can get involved: join the coalition, help spread beanspiration, inspire others, eat more beans and grow more beans. My bean consumption has gone through the roof since we started this campaign. And if we each do that and go into every restaurant we go into, ask for beans. If they're not there, people need to be told you want them. That's like a very personal commitment to do. If you find bean dishes, celebrate them. We're going to be running a menu challenge to try and encourage every restaurant to add a dish with beans in it so that you can get, all the standards, but there's also a beans dish. We need to make it more convenient, more accessible. Think about how you can have beans at your next events. If you're running an event, if you're running a staff meeting even, get beans there. Make sure beans are really focused. We have a series of tools. We've got a Trello board. If people are involved in social media, they know what a Trello board is, but essentially it's a site where you can go and you can get access to download pre-designed resources that you can then utilize. They're all just branded with the beans is how. They're very open. We're going to be adding more. So we added just a whole bunch of information about myths from one of our partners, UFIC, the other day. We've also got a YouTube playlist, and this is just going to be continuously added to. Lots of content there. We've had lots of social media. You can follow Beans as How, but yeah, lots of different social media. We've got articles. So there's an article from Alison and Chelsea. If you like their panel, check that out. We did something with UFIC on Valentine's Day. It was really interesting talking about. We also did something with Bold Bean Co. And just thinking differently, taking every moment to talk about beans. And if we all do that, we're going to see how we can move forward. We also did collaborations around school meals and International Day of Education, and then lots of educational. We're going to be doing FAQs and all that kind of side of things. So I am conscious that we're heading to lunch. I said that I was going to be try and help get us there in time, but I would just like to say, if you are interested in being a part of this, which I know you're interested in beans, have a think about how you could be, over the next 5 years, step up and double bean consumption in the role that you play. That could be production, it could be new products, it could be educational resources. Think about what you can do, and let's get together to all work on really driving this forward under a kind of unifying platform. Because I think when this does happen, if we can do this for beans, then we can do it for other parts of the food system. And I think everyone agrees that beans are how we can actually get this done. So thank you very much.